Today on r/am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my mom to shut up and accept that my wife and I aren't naming our kids the way she and dad named me and my siblings? My wife and I, both late 20s, had our first child together in June. Before he was born, there was a lot of talk about names from different family members on both sides, but the pressure to tell was on my side specifically. We didn't tell a soul what the name would be until our son was born and we had left the hospital. My parents were disappointed when we announced our son's name. My family are very traditional in how they named us. We were each named after grandparents, and that's how they feel everyone should name their kids. My wife's family don't have a tradition when it comes to naming babies. They just name them and go. No fuss or insisting on certain names. But my wife's side tends to favor more uncommon and unusual names. My wife's and my taste tends to lean a lot more to her side than to mine, which is how we ended up choosing the name Hollis for our son. This was not something my parents liked because they expected our son to be either Jack, my dad, or Parker, my father-in-law. But I know they were expecting a little Jack to be born. So that added to their reaction. But they quizzed us on our choice to break tradition, and I told them it wasn't a tradition my wife's family used, and we decided we weren't going to have one either. Over the last couple of months, both parents have questioned why, have wanted to discuss other names for future babies. My mom has been the worst by far. She asked why we went with something so unlike the names we have in our family. I told her our family wasn't the only family involved, but that we also didn't take the family tastes into account. We went with what we liked. She pointed out our tastes were a lot like my in-laws, and I said yes, but that it wasn't about my in-laws and their taste, it was about my wife's and my taste. I told her I was done discussing it, and since that point I now change the topic or end the conversation when she brings it up or refuses to let it go. We had a little naming ceremony on Saturday, and my mom decided she was going to dig in her heels about the name, and she told me we'd picked a stupid name and she hated it. She wanted us to change it and name him Jack or Parker. She told me we had no business breaking a long-held tradition in our family, and there's a reason those traditions are there so foolish people can't name their babies the worst names imaginable. She also said my in-laws must be so smug thinking they'll have at least 2 stupidly named grandkids like they had all stupidly named kids. I lost my temper. I told her to shut up and accept that we're not naming our kids like she and dad named me and my siblings, and I told her she would need to leave and learn to be more respectful, because I would not take those insults against my wife or her family lying down. My mom hated being told to shut up, and she said I had no excuse for rudeness to her face. I thought she was crazy when she was rude. Am I the a-hole though? For our next story. Am I the a-hole for taking my clothes off at the Cheesecake Factory? So me, 23 female, and my boyfriend, E24 male, were celebrating our 1-year anniversary and went out to dinner to celebrate. My boyfriend planned it as he knows how much I love the Cheesecake Factory. I really love their cheesecake. This becomes important later. Well, everything was going fine and we were having a good time until an elderly man at the next table scooted his chair out just as our server was approaching, causing him to stumble and spill hot coffee on me down my back. It was obviously burning and startled me, so I instinctively screamed and pulled my shirt up. I'm pretty small-chested, so I don't typically wear a bra, and obviously I wasn't thinking about that when something hot was running down my back, burning me, so I basically flashed all those at the tables around us. Yes, I was embarrassed, but at the same time it's just boobs. I pulled my shirt back down right after realizing what happened, but it was up for about 15 seconds. The server apologized over and over, but it wasn't their fault, it was all just an accident. Well, anyway, after this my boyfriend wanted to leave, like immediately leave. He said that I was being overdramatic for the way I reacted in the situation, and maybe I was, but it did startle me really bad, and it did burn. He told me I had put on a show for everyone in the restaurant, especially since I screamed when it happened, and that we need to leave. I told him it's not that big a deal and that I really want to stay to get cheesecake because it's my favorite. I eventually even offered to try to get some to go, and he was dead set that we need to leave and didn't understand why I wasn't mortified. We ended up staying, but for the rest of the date he kept saying that the men at tables near us were staring at me, and probably thinking about me inappropriately, but I said it wasn't my problem if they're being gross. When we got in the car, he told me I ruined our anniversary for making him sit through that and we should have just left, and that he can't believe I would choose a piece of cheesecake over his comfortability. We argued in the car the whole way home about it, and now we haven't spoken at all today. Am I the a-hole? Let's dive into our next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my husband to cancel his bros-only trip to help me with our newborn after he promised he would? This situation has caused a lot of tension between my husband and me, and now I'm questioning whether I'm being unreasonable. I, 30 female, gave birth to our first child, Olivia, 2 months ago. Being a first-time mom has been both beautiful and overwhelming. My husband, Jake, 32 male, was incredibly supportive during the pregnancy and promised that after Olivia was born, he would be there for me every step of the way, especially during those challenging first few months. Before Olivia was born, Jake and his friends had been planning a bros-only trip for this summer, a week-long vacation to a cabin in the mountains for hiking, fishing, and bonding. When the trip was being discussed, I reminded Jake that Olivia would only be a few months old, and we would be deep in the newborn phase. He reassured me that if things got too tough, he would cancel the trip to help me out, and I trusted him. Now that Olivia is here, things have been harder than I anticipated. Between the sleepless nights, breastfeeding struggles, and just trying to adjust to motherhood, I've been feeling overwhelmed. Jake has been helpful, but I can tell he's excited about this trip, which is coming up next month. Last week I asked Jake if he could consider canceling the trip, reminding him of his promise. I told him that I'm struggling, and that having him gone for a whole week would be really tough on me. He seemed surprised and a bit hurt that I was asking him to cancel. He said he's been looking forward to this trip for months, and that he needs a break too. He also pointed out that his parents live nearby and could help if I needed support while he was away. I understand that Jake needs a break and wants to spend time with his friends, but I can't help feeling like this is a time when I really need him by my side. I tried to explain that while I appreciate his parents' help, it's not the same as having him here. Jake said that I'm being unfair by asking him to cancel the trip after all the planning that went into it, and that I need to trust him to make sure I'm supported even if he's not physically there. Now we're at a bit of a standoff. Some of my friends think I should let him go, saying that it's important for him to have some time away, especially after all the stress of becoming a new dad. But others agree that it's too soon for him to take off for a week, and that he should prioritize being home with me and Olivia. So am I the a-hole for asking my husband to cancel his bros-only trip to help me with our newborn after he promised he would? On to the next story. Am I the a-hole for encouraging my daughter not to watch her cousin or clean up his mess? Whenever my sister Lynn goes to any family event, she never watches her own kids and expects everyone else to, including my own children, who have complained about it. She will leave the room with her toddler, that acts like a wild animal. I told my children, 10 and 13, not to be duped into watching that brat. My 13-year-old daughter left the room when my sister left her alone with her kid to gossip with my mom. My daughter got up and left. Lynn's toddlers pulled all the food off by the tablecloth and spilled red pasta sauce all over my mom's carpet. The kid was screaming, and Lynn started to yell at my daughter when I told Lynn it was her responsibility to watch her own effing kids. Lynn said she thought my daughter was watching the baby. I asked her, "Did you ask my daughter to?" Lynn said she thought my daughter was smart enough to watch kids if they were alone with them. My daughter said maybe Lynn should be smarter next time she thinks of having kids that she can't control or watch. Yes, this was rude, and I laughed. My mom told my daughter to help pick up the mess because she helped cause it. My daughter refused, saying it was Lynn's fault because she let her kids run around like animals. My mom said we could all leave because we had no respect for her or her house. My daughter said she wouldn't be back until her grandmother and aunt respected her. I took my kids home. My mom thinks I should punish or talk to my daughter and make her apologize, but I won't. I don't think my daughter did anything wrong, and it's Lynn's fault for not watching her own brats. For our next story. Am I the a-hole because I am intentionally not letting my neighbor in, causing her and her dog to sit outside in the dark? I live in an apartment block. To access the property after 8 p.m., you must carry your front door key with you. We were all told this prior to moving in. A tenant has moved in downstairs and she leaves the back door unlocked to allow herself to come and go without taking her key. She isn't supposed to do this, and she has been told multiple times to take her front door key in case the door locks, which she has ignored. She has started treating me like a literal doorman, knocking loudly on my windows and repeatedly buzzing my apartment to try to get me to open the door for her. It is daily, and it riles up my dog every time, and it always occurs after 9 p.m. I have let her in twice in good faith, then told her the third time to take her key and that I will no longer be answering. She decided to go out with her dog this evening and again didn't bother to take her key when she started buzzing and knocking on my windows loudly. I shut off my buzzer, gave my dog a treat and closed the doors, deciding to ignore her and continue watching my movie instead. This is where I could be the a-hole. It's dark out at the moment, late, and she's outside by herself with her dog. She's been out there for about 45 minutes. We also live in a shady area. Not dangerous, but definitely not pleasant at night. She has been sat outside on the doorstep on her phone, angrily ranting about me to her friends, like I'm her dad. I don't know this woman aside from her treating me like a concierge. Am I the a-hole? Edit for update. I opened the door. I said I wouldn't, but quite frankly, I literally couldn't go to sleep knowing she and her dog were out there. I went downstairs and opened the door and told her that this was the last time and I will be reporting to management and calling the police if she knocks on my windows anymore. I'm gonna just hope that a few hours outside has got the message across. Sorry for everyone who told me not to give in, but it's nearing midnight here, and as much as she pisses me off, I'm not about to leave her out there. Our last story for today. Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister my wife's clothes? My wife was a corporate lawyer and mediator. She had some very nice work clothes. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and was gone in 2 years. The last 6 months of her life were heck. My sister Sarah didn't do jack crap for us during that time. My wife never liked her. I do not like her. She is a selfish cow. At my wife's wake, she started asking about my wife's clothes and I brushed her off. She wanted to pick out a few pieces to remember my wife by and I ignored her. It's been 6 months, and I've attended my mom's birthday but I'm still not in the mood to deal with people. Then Sarah comes, asking about my wife's clothes. I told her my wife wanted me to donate them to this women's shelter, and she often helped. It will help women in need with their own court cases, court appointments, and job interviews. My sister Sarah said my wife was even selfish in death. I asked her what the F did she mean? And she started going off on how my wife always thought she was better than her, and it's not far that the clothes are going to charity and not to family. I told my sister I would rather see my wife's clothes lit on fire than on her back. My sister started crying and my mom came over to see what was wrong. My mom told me to be easy on my sister because she was talking about my wife's death hard. The effing insanity of that coming out of my mom's mouth made me grab my gift and leave. My mom acts like I had to ruin her birthday by being melodramatic, but I cannot believe their emotional blackmail towards me over effing clothes that they have no right to. And those are all the stories we have for today. See you tomorrow.